Smart as a deer and fast as a cantaloupe, our brave hero was searching for the lost city of Marcita Aurora. The stream of the Lesseps Lake was too complicated to cross swimming, but Marcita Aurora was on the other side, so he had to learn how water flows.
Greetings, wanderers of the unknown on Wisdom Painting Minis for the last big part of our massive project, the entire completion of a fantasy medieval scenery. This is the moment I've been waiting for, the leap of faith into resin water, the casting of the Marcita Aurora canal. It's not just going to be that, of course. We are actually making all of the terrain part that will involve epoxy resin. The canal, of course, but also the smaller spot of the fountain, as well as an unusual casting, the stained glass of the manor windows. So let's grab those 2 pounds of resin, some gloves and our nerves, because we are having the main stress of the project. Okay, first the material. When using epoxy you need, well, of course resin. It's basically 2 components that will be mixed together, usually at a 2:1 ratio. So I will need some containers for the mix, as well as a stirrer. Maybe you can use those we have for mixing the paint. Then gloves and mask, obviously. We are playing with chemicals here and we don't really want to end this project in a hospital, right? If your containers are not precise enough, you can also use a kitchen balance to be sure how much of each component you are pouring. And except if you want to have a real clean water, you will also have some pigments. They can be sold by the same seller than the epoxy, or you can of course use your own. I will have both for this video. And last but not least, epoxy resin tends to make bubbles when you are pouring it on the surface, especially if it's as uneven as our waterbed. To help avoiding this issue, you can use a heat gun. But for now, let's move back to the terrain and finalize the canal content. So we have skulls, obviously, trash, normal, stones, and alga, relevant. But there's still one thing we usually see in water that is absent. And don't say water, I see you in the back. Yeah, it's fishes, of course. Even polluted by irresponsible farmers with animal manure, it's possible that some sea life is still wandering those waters. So, as I don't have molds for that and didn't want to spend days on a toy store to find the proper size of fish, I did those myself using some air drying clay. After undercoating them with gray cere, I'm giving them a shiny silverback using Stormmost silver. I'm covering the top half of the fishes and let the belly gray. Then, using contrast paint Aethermatic Blue, I'm washing most of it, letting only a slight silver unwashed. Then, on the top part of it, I'm adding a layer of Acalian Green to shadow the back of the fishes a bit more. I'm ending the paint job with a bit more of Stormmost silver as a circle around the eye to give them a glary look. I'm cutting the support to a decent length, just enough to see the fishes when the resin will be poured and make a tiny hole to pin them to the waterbed. Now that everything I wanted is present, I can prepare the pouring as our water will be around 3 cm deep. We need of course to secure the sides to avoid the resin to run outside the board. Yes, it's the single most important step in this whole episode, and if you don't want to ruin your terrain, your table and your floor. I kept some clear plastic tray that I cut to the good size and I'm sealing the sides using a lot of hot glue. Don't hesitate to add a second or even a third layer of glue when it's stuck to be sure nothing bad will happen. Regarding the pouring in itself, I'm having a 2 layers process. I will split the 2 pounds of resin into 2 separate buckets and have a darker, greener one on the deep and a clearer one on the top. I'm mixing the 2 components with the paint stirrer in the first container and add the main pigment in the meantime. Then I'm reserving half of it and pour the other half in a second pitcher, adding my dark green ink and mixing it again. Now it's time for the pouring. Put your mask and gloves on and use the stirrer to drag the resin gently in the surface. You can apply it on different spots to be sure the epoxy is applied evenly on the whole bottom. I'm waiting a few hours to have this first batch secured and pour the second half the same way. If you are careful enough while doing it, you should keep a good transition between the 2 resins color and gain this depth in the look. It's a good time to take your heat gun and blow it on the surface to push every bubble on the surface. Be careful if you don't want to melt your styrofoam. We just have to wait for it to dry. It will of course depend on the resin formula as well as the thickness of the coat. That's great. It already changes everything on the board. But I remind you, this is not still water. It's running from one board to the other and we need to create some ripples. I will use this water effect gel from Vallejo to cover this whole flat surface and give it some waves. We just covered the glass-like resin with a thick coat. And then, with the straw or an empty airbrush, we will accentuate the ripple effect by blowing the gel in the good direction. When this coat is dry, I'm taking some white paint and an old dry brush and I'm creating some spume where there could be, like against the walls, around the skewer. The effect must stay subtle or it will ruin the water effect. As the main work is done, we can remove the seals on both sides. It might be a bit messy as some of your previous paint can be snatched with the plastic, but you can easily repair that with some more black Mod Podge in the end. There might also be some excess resin on the sides. Don't hesitate to remove it with your X-Acto knife. Last step here, we are securing the whole resin part with some gloss glassifier that we will apply on the top and sides of the work. The canal is complete at last and it really forges the district personality. Now, for the smaller parts of this episode, we will take care of the fountain. We have those 2 water inlets that can or cannot be active. I've decided to make the water flow from them as it will be more interesting visually. To make the water stream, you can use anything transparent, of course, like a piece of plastic card. But I wanted those to be a bit more textured, so I'm applying some hot glue on a curved glass surface, and while still hot, I'm creating the water texture with a sculpting tool. I can let it dry and then remove it from the bottle. Now, I just have to glue them to the water inlet to have this stream effect. We are pouring some resin here as well, but this time I want something more dirty and opaque. So instead of ink, I'm mixing the epoxy with some plague bearer flesh paint. Not too much to keep the transparency, of course. And instead of using a pitcher, I'm applying the resin using a syringe. That's the best way to keep control of the pouring. I'm using the streams to make it flow naturally from the inlets to the basin and let it time to dry. Now back to the water effect gel. I'm applying it only where the stream is running into the basin to render splatters. The spume effect is done only on the stream and stream end this time. And we finally applied the same glacifier coat to complete this step. The whole water part is done, but we still have some casting to do, quite differently this time. As you know, I wanted some stained glass window on the manor, and we are having epoxy one more time for this. Using this wire mesh, I'm going to cut the frame of the window glass. That's 4 rectangles and 2 Gothic arch. After undercoating, I'm securing the frames on a flat surface using a small dot of hot glue. I really don't want them to move during the process. Now I will create tiny batches of epoxy mixed with contrast paints. As we will have to wait between casting to avoid having the colors mixing together, I will make those one by one. My stained glass will be blue, green, yellow and purple. I will this time use a small stick of wood to apply these, as it will be done dot by dot on each gap between the wires. For the rectangles, the pattern will just be diagonal checkered. The ground floor windows are going to be purple and yellow. While the second floor will have a blue and green pattern. For the arched windows, I will try to create something a bit more complicated, but still using the wire mesh pattern. I will have all 4 colors in some kind of tree-like drawing. I'm waiting for the last resin batch to dry before cutting it off the board, remove the excess on the edges. And use some hot glue to fix the windows inside the frames from behind. It's for this reason that we cut bigger holes on the back side of the board. And there we are, the first building to be completely done, but the last step on the two others will be done during our final episode. And now, let's unravel this week's work and watch how close we are from completion. Yes, we did it! I know this episode wasn't the longest or the most complicated for the series, but I really wanted to give this step its full segment. The resin casting was something quite stressful for me, and I'm glad it went so well after all. The next episode will really be the hero's rest, as we will add the last details to the whole scenery. We still have some medieval windows to do and the last decorations to give its soul to the district. So I hope you will still all be there to finish it with me. We are getting to an end on this massive project. I want to thank you all again for your support. When I created the channel 1.5 years ago, I wasn't sure where it will lead to, and that's amazing to see so many people following this journey. Thank you all for your devotion, and until next time, take care. Good painting to all, and see you all again soon.
Having learned the science of water, known as hydrology, our bloodthirsty hero crossed the Lesseps Lake to reach Marcita Aurora land, a few walking days from his final destination.